record to the cloud. All right, so welcome to the AMATYC 2022 webinar series. We have developing data science programs at two-year colleges with Crystal, Kelly, Paul, Rachel, and Rebecca. This is joint ASA AMATYC Statistics Committee. We would like to thank McGraw-Hill for their support of the AMATYC webinar series for 2022. Thank you again for signing up for today's webinar. If you'd like to support future AMATYC webinars, please consider becoming a member of AMATYC. Note, the views expressed by the presenters are not necessarily the views of AMATYC. Commercial products mentioned by presenters are not endorsed by AMATYC. Recordings of previous AMATYC webinars, as well as this webinar, will be posted to our AMATYC webinar archives. It may take 2 weeks or more to produce and upload this webinar. So a little bit of self-promotion here. We have our AMATYC National Conference in Toronto coming up in November. We also have several options for professional development as well as publications with AMATYC. And another more tidbit of self-promotion by our presenters. We actually have a spotlight here on impact, successes, and challenges in data science at two-year colleges. AMATYC webinars are offered so that you can engage in professional development from the comfort of your own home or office. And so I will actually be putting the attendee survey in chat as noted about 15 minutes before the conclusion of the webinar. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me at the address there. So with us today, we have Kelly Fitzpatrick, Paul Hansford, Rachel, Crystal, and Rebecca. And they are going to talk about developing data science programs at two-year colleges. So I could read their bios there, but let's just say they come from everywhere. So we have California, we have Ohio, I believe Maryland, California, nice and warm there. I'm from Texas, so we've got the states covered today. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca, who will be moderating this webinar. Here you go, Rebecca.
Okay, just one moment while I get our slides ready to go.
No worries.
So I want to thank everyone for attending today, and let me just share with you a little bit about the format we're going to be using. So each of our presenters is going to have about 5 to 7 minutes to share an overview of their program. Then we have some questions for discussion that the presenters will discuss among themselves. And then we'll be monitoring the chat to see what questions you might like us to address. And so as things come up for you during our presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat, and hopefully we'll have time to address your questions at the end of the session. Mary, before we get started, did you want to do the poll first?
I was just going to ask you if you'd like me to do that first poll.
Okay, so let me
Yes,
stop sharing and let you go ahead and do that.
So it should launch now. Do y'all see it? Yay! I love it when things work. So, so I don't know if you can see, can you see the results? I've been told that people can't see the results. So let me give it just a couple of more seconds here. We have almost all 37 attendees are viewing and answering. So it says, the question says, do you currently have a data science program running or in development at your college? The yes is 11, the no is 21, and the I don't know is currently at 0.
All right. Well, that gives us a good place to start. So when we designed this webinar, we really were designing it with the thought of helping people get started and helping people grow their programs. And so hopefully that you will find all of the information that our presenters have to share with you helpful. Okay, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. So our first presenter is going to be Crystal, and I'll turn it over to her.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Wiggins. I'm a professor of mathematics at Northwestern Connecticut Community College in Winsted, Connecticut. So we have two programs happening right now. We have our data science certificate, which is a 6-course certificate, 18 credits. It can be completed in 1 year, and it can be completed fully online, depending on which electives they choose for the elective course. It is designed for two different types of students. Either it's students who have a completely different major and they want to add on skills to be able to deal with the data in their career that they're going to have. So whether it be political science, a STEM career, economics, business, it's very popular as an add-on to other associate majors. Or the other flip side of that is those who already have degrees and are working out in their career currently and decide that they want to either level up on their skills within their current job so that they can move up in their job, or they want to do a change of career. So many of the students that come in for the certificate are one of those two groups. The other thing we have is the associate's degree program, which is primarily a transfer degree right now. Data science is bringing down the requirements from a doctorate. It's been a doctorate for so long to work in data science, and it's definitely coming down with the degrees or what kind of skills you need to demonstrate in order to get those entry-level jobs. So we are embedding micro-credentials. Currently, we're working with 3 different companies on doing that so that they are industry recognized micro-credentials, in hopes of making our associate's degree more of a workforce degree to get our students into the entry-level jobs earlier. We currently have transfer agreements with 3 out of the 6 universities in Connecticut that have data science programs. Some of those programs aren't fully developed yet, so we are waiting for those to be completely solidified before we can finish those articulations. Next slide, please.
Yep, I'm working on that. There we go.
So this program that I developed is the first 2-year program in Connecticut when I developed it. I researched it for 2 years prior to creating the program on my own time, using professional development and going to a bunch of different boot camps and different webinars and gaining all the information that I needed in order to create the program. At the time that I created the program in Connecticut, there were maybe 1 4-year program in data science prior to my 2-year one. So there wasn't a whole lot for me to go off of, which actually made it kind of nice because I was able to work with the 4-year schools when they were developing theirs and kind of develop it around my 2-year program, which made articulations a lot easier. When this first was deployed, I was the only one teaching these courses, but it has grown since. At Northwestern, we house it in the math department, which is part of the STEM department. But next year, all of the 12 Connecticut community colleges will be merging into one CT State community college with 12 campuses. And it has been decided to be housed in the technology and computer science department instead of the math department. My first cohort was in fall of 2019. There was 3 students, and they worked really hard through their program. The pandemic was not kind to the program. I went from 3 to 14 in fall of 2020, but the pandemic kind of wiped out a lot of those certificate students because something had to give, and the certificate was what had to give, understandably. So it's been a little bit of a tough momentum for the program. Now that we're coming on the outside of the pandemic, we're starting to see the numbers pick up again. My first certificate grads were in May of 2021, and my first associate grads were this May in 2022. One of those associate grads actually just got hired as a front-end software developer with just his associates. So that has a lot to do with how many projects that I have, how many industry partners I bring into the classroom. The more involved your industry partners are and the more hands-on things and the portfolio that you're developing with your students, the much easier it is for them to find jobs at those entry levels without a bachelor's or a master's. Now we have 5 out of the 12 community colleges in Connecticut that have copied the program, and therefore I have quite a few colleagues that I get to work with now. I developed an advisory board with the 4-year schools and the 2-year colleges to have semester once a semester we meet in order to talk about our curriculum and invite industry partners in and make sure we're staying current and have everything that industry is looking for in terms of skills and portfolio at the end of the programs. Perfect. So the courses that we currently have that I've personally developed, we have programming for data science. So this covers the basics of data science in general, the career. We walk through LinkedIn, we walk through networking, client onboarding, talking about the dynamics that are involved in data science and how diverse it is and how many different tracks there are. And incorporating how to program in R at the same time. So it's kind of a well-rounded intro course, but I wouldn't say it's just an intro course though, because it's pretty heavy when it comes to the content. I use RStudio Cloud because it's internet-based and it is free. Our Intro to Machine Learning course, I say it's an intro course because this does not have prereqs of linear algebra to it. In order to write a lot of those algorithms, linear algebra is a good foundation of linear is needed. But the students can learn all of these techniques and these algorithms in theory. So we spend a lot of time about talking about what are the different techniques that are out there, when would you use them, when is R better to use than Python and vice versa, because they are different applications that require a different language. And so we cover a lot of those things that are mentioned there on the slide. One of my favorite courses that I teach is data journalism. This one is an interdisciplinary course. I teach it with an English professor. So this one's all about being able to tell the story through data. So we spend time talking about different graphs, which graphs are appropriate, and way beyond just the bar graph, histogram, and pie chart. Like we go into the bubble, the density charts, all of that good stuff. And we talk about all the different aspects to a good dashboard, what the legends should be, how busy should it be, how many titles should you have, what are the color schemes, all the interactive pieces. And we use Tableau Desktop or Public. Tableau Public is free for everyone. There are limitations. Tableau Desktop is free for students and instructors as long as it's written in your syllabus. So I'm all about getting those free resources for our students. The capstone research course is pretty much an internship brought to the classroom. So instead of students having to go out to an organization to do their internship, the organization comes to them. So we partner up with an industry partner, we pick a problem that the industry partner needs to work on, and the students essentially work on that problem the entire semester. There is little to no lecture in that class. In fact, almost all my data science classes have little to no lecture. They're all project-based learning. And that's really geared towards the career that they're going to be leading in data science. They need to know how to problem solve. They need to know how to answer their own questions by finding the resources online, because no matter how much schooling they have, they're still going to be learning in that career. Every project, every data set is going to be different. So I have gotten really great feedback from my students who have gone through the capstone research course, saying that now that they're working, they can't believe how helpful it was to go through that course. One of our newest courses is the data ethics and security. This one was created through one of the micro-credentials, that industry supported micro-credential that we've been building. So that one hasn't been run yet, but it covers a whole wide variety of information about data ethics, security, and biases and storage and all that. I just wanted to mention before I finish is that we have added an artificial intelligence option to the data science degree, and we are creating some new courses with that. They're just not done yet. And we've also created a business intelligence degree, which is an interdisciplinary degree between data science and business. So we have a lot of great things happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal, for sharing about your program. That's so exciting. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions for you about it later. I'd like to introduce our next presenter. Our next presenter is going to be Kelly Fitzpatrick, and she's going to be telling you about her program.
Hi, my name is Kelly Fitzpatrick. We received a grant to support our efforts in building our data science certificate and data science courses through the NSF. So the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. So a lot of companies are now data-driven, such as Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Tesla. And there, you can go to the next slide. This is from the State of the State Innovation in New Jersey. And really what we have recognized and that our industry partners have recognized is that there is a need for high demand jobs, and there's a shortage of labor supply. And those really, the top jobs are in big data, AI, and machine learning. So that was one of the drivers behind building the certificate. And that's one of the drivers behind a lot of these community colleges and four-year colleges needing to build out data science programs. Next slide. Our data analytics certificate is 16 credits. We built 3 new classes. Our certificate is also housed in the mathematics department because I'm a professor in the mathematics department. We created Math 114, Introduction to Data Science. We used the Hadley-Wickham book, R for Data Science. We revised and revamped our Math 130, our Probability and Statistics course now incorporates R. So students learn how to do summary statistics, regression, binomial probability using R. This way they can work with larger data sets, and you have to kind of go to the computer and use software if you're going to do analysis, with big data, data sets that are hundreds and thousands of rows. We did not have Python programming on our campus, so we created 2 new courses in Python programming. CMP 131, Fundamentals of Programming, is nice in that it has no prerequisites. So students can really just jump into programming and start learning right away. And we designed our program and certificate with the idea that we wanted to have low barriers to entry and not have high mathematics prerequisites. So even in the Math 114, the prerequisite is intermediate algebra, which is a non-credit course. We already had CMP 241, which the students is called database programming, and students learn SQL. And then we created 2 new courses. Students can choose between data science programming in Python or a machine learning course. Next slide. We created what is called the stackable credential. And so the 16 credit certificate is the level 1. From there, our certificate is embedded within our existing degrees. So the certificate is embedded currently in the information technology degree, and we created a new computer science degree with the data science option. I am trying to get through the certificate embedded within the mathematics degree. These are the 3 primary disciplines where the certificate fits nicely and where the students are most interested in learning data science. From there, we created articulation agreements with Ramapo College, so students can go on and get their 4-year degree in either data science, computer science, or math. And then Ramapo also offers a master's in data science. What we're working on right now is we do have an advisory board with Intel, Atlantic Health, a wider circle is in there, but we really want to expand. That's what I'm working on now, is our internship opportunities or job shadow opportunities for our students. And also for future credentialing, we want to get our students to have industry credentials. One of them is the Tableau Desktop Specialization exam, and there are some exams out of the Python Institute, the PCEP exam and the PCAP exam. So those are future ideas that we are working on. Our workforce development, the non-credit side of the college, we do offer 4 series of Tableau courses where after those courses, the students or the learners are prepared to take the Tableau Desktop Specialization exam. Next slide. So when we built out our pathway, this is kind of our journey. So far, we've had 43 students enrolled in the Introduction to Data Science course. We have now about 14 students enrolled in the Data Analytics certificate. It's about 1 year old now. We have had 6 female students attend the Women in Statistics and Data Science conference. We've had 2 students have internships. We're really looking to build out our industry partners and provide more internship opportunities for our students. And we already had 1 student successfully transfer to Ramapo College. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing about your program. And so continuing on our presenters, our next presenter will be Paul Hansford, who will share about his program at Sinclair Community College.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Hansford with Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. And we're about 135 years old, have 30,000 students, not that many in our particular degrees. I have 4 data programs up and running. The initial one was my predecessor, and it had a certificate, a one-year certificate that was in place. And it had up and down enrollment, probably about between 10 and 15 for many years. And then we had our data analytics degree recently launched, thanks to a National Science Foundation grant as well. And it boosted the enrollment almost immediately. And a part of that stackable credentials that Kelly was talking about, I created a data fundamentals certificate very shortly after the degree, and that allowed students to start in the short-term certificate and then move into the AAS degree. And then most recently, really fresh, launching this fall, we have a new data literacy foundation, which is really designed to be a pathway for high school students moving into college courses. So we're taking some of our college courses and moving them down, and we've added some courses to be more advanced courses for what we already have. Next slide. So the department that our program is housed in is currently the CS and IT department, because that's where my predecessors put it. And it would be like an act of Congress to move something from one department to another department. But we do have plenty of courses that are in math, basically stats, and now we have an introduction to data science with R. Next slide. Our current enrollment numbers in the past have been kind of like 10 to 15, and then we created our degree and it kind of jumped way up to like 30 almost instantly without any kind of advertising or anything. There was a little bit of law. I think that's been repeated a couple of times with COVID. But there was students were starting to get to that point where they're starting to get that degree. A couple of students just completed the AAS degree for the first time, so that was really great. And our new certificate already has 2 in it. So that, I mean, it's launching in August, and I don't even know how anybody even enrolled in it yet. So that's really exciting. A little bit about some of the classes that we offer. I think there was a slide for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We do offer fundamental IT classes, which would be like your networking, your programming, and things of that nature. But there's also the stats classes that are in math. And then in the CS and IT, we do data viz, we do statistics analysis, data modeling, a lot of database, SQL programming, Python. We now have a Python for data analytics, and now we have an advanced Python for data analytics, thanks to popular demand of that language. And I think that covers it for right now.
Paul, I apologize.
It's all right. Don't worry about that.
Poll, I'll go back to, we were trying to collate several people's slides and their formatting and things. So I apologize that one slide got deleted in the final deck. But when we go back to our final poll, I'll dig out that last slide and so that you can share it with the group and actually have people see it while you go over the overview.
No problem. No problem.
I apologize. Okay, and now that brings us to Rachel, who's going to share her program with us in Maryland.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, actually, if you don't mind going back to the first slide just for a second, because before I say anything else, I just want to say how much I appreciate being a panelist in this group, because there are a lot of great data science thinkers here, people who are really progressing data science at the two-year college, and I always learn. So going last, I really appreciate following everyone. So I will try not to repeat some of the things. I would just want to keep saying ditto to a lot of things that Crystal, Paula, and Kelly all said. So we can go to the next slide. My name is Rachel.
I'm just going to jump into Rachel's presentation for a moment. Rachel helped coordinate the AMATYC Data Fest competition this year for two-year colleges. So she has
with
been
you, Rebecca.
she's been a real champion about offering data science opportunities for community college students. So that's just something to put on your radar, that we're hoping to do this again next year as well. But I just appreciate all her work on that project. So look for Data Fest coming to community colleges again next year.
Thank you, Rebecca. And actually, Kelly was one of, her school was one of the participants. They did
Yes.
an amazing job. So yes, our circles, it's a very small pool of right now, but we're hoping by this webinar to broaden the pool of people who are in data science. So we currently offer, we started with a data science certificate. Our first certificate folks started in 2017. And kind of like what many of the other presenters have discussed is that we didn't really have anywhere to transfer to. So it was very open-ended in terms of the learning outcomes. From that, we established an Associate of Arts in General Studies STEM with the data science concentration, so that our General Studies STEM students could incorporate the data science certificate. And actually also what works really well is our business, our Associate of Arts in Business goes really well with that as well. So a lot of business students are now starting to get a data science certificate. We are about to start this fall our Associate of Science and Data Science that is transferable to a number of four-year institutions. And we're currently working on a business analytics degree. And I just wanted to applaud, I think it was Crystal who talked about storytelling and communication, because the way we're creating the business analytics degree is kind of from the scratch, where we're trying to start with high school students, getting the incorporated into the two-year college that will head directly seamlessly into a four-year. And in fact, it's going to be a 2+2+1 with a master's. And the folks we're working with in those schools are talking very much about how they absolutely need the visualization and communication and storytelling aspect. So we can go to the next slide, please. So we offer our intro stats, and then our 4 data classes. The intro to data science, very much like Kelly's, it uses both primarily R Studio and the Tidyverse. Data 110 is also utilizing R and Tableau, like Crystal's Tableau public. That is our visualization and communication data science, which also incorporates some data journalism. Data 201 is statistical methods. They utilize Python, some advanced statistical methods, and machine learning and regression analysis. And then also, like Crystal's, we have the capstone experience, which is a semester-long experience where we work with business or industry as a liaison to the data managers for our students. Next slide, please. We are housed in the Math, Statistics, and Data Science department. We started as a math department. Then a couple of years later, I think it was 2017, we became the Math and Statistics department. And then once we finally got the data science certificate incorporated in there with the 4 classes, we are now, it feels good to say we're the Math, Statistics, and Data Science department, because it's very easy for us to make our own decisions since we have all of the faculty in there. We're currently only 5 full-time and part-time faculty. We are encouraging, and this was to address one of the questions that was in the Q&A. So we're encouraging our interested full and part-time staff to take our data classes. So we've actually had our math and statistics faculty come and join our data classes so that they can learn about data science to see if they'd like to become faculty members. They also are encouraged to take professional development, courses online or however they'd like to do it. Last year, our faculty search committee hired 2 new math, stats, and data science faculty. And one of the requirements was that all interested candidates had to present an intro to data science lesson, so that they weren't just being hired for math and statistics, they were also potentially capable of teaching data science classes. And we are developing currently an early college data science program, which we're going to have a huge need, an increased need for more faculty. Biology students are also going to start taking the 100 level data classes. So between that, our program we expect will grow quite a bit. And before we go on to anything else, I wanted to also reiterate the ethics portion of it. So when we have our Associate of Science, we require students to take an intro to philosophy course that actually is specifically dedicated to computer science and data science topics in ethics, but we also scaffold ethics into all 4 of our data science classes. And I also would like to say we have an advisory board, which is fantastic. I definitely recommend getting an advisory board. And a lot of our students, 75% of our students are currently working professionals. So all of our classes are in the evening. They are also all virtual because we have multiple campuses. So we try to make it as accessible as possible. And many of them, as long as they already had a undergraduate or a graduate degree, once they get our certificate, they pretty much immediately have gotten jobs and or internships. And I think that's my last slide. Oh, sorry.
One more.
That one, you all can just read kind of the numbers. They're less important, but the breakdown is kind of interesting in terms of our demographics. It's not quite 50-50 on sex, female, male, but the age range kind of tells you what I was just saying about our working professionals. Our mean age as of last semester was 32.5, with our lowest age at 18, not surprising, but our highest age was 71. So we do have people coming back at all ages. And we are still working to improve our demographic representation, but currently we have about 43% representation from Black and Hispanic students. And those are just our different transfer opportunities that we have right now that I had mentioned earlier. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I want to thank our panelists for that overview of each of their programs. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move into the part of our presentation where we have some questions prepared for the panelists to discuss among themselves. And then after we do that, we'll monitor the chat to see what else we have time to pick up and answer. Okay, so the first question, some of you already addressed this. And so if you have already, great. But if you haven't had an opportunity to, can you talk a little bit about the role of industry or community partners in your program, specifically the role of an advisory board? And maybe even those of you who have already talked about your advisory board, maybe talk a little bit about where you started when you wanted to recruit people to help you with the function in your program.
So industry partners, I think, are probably the most important for a data science program. The partners that I work with are primarily the ones that I bring into the classroom for the capstone research course. And then building a relationship with those partners, I have gotten almost all my students internships with them, so that they're continuing their relationship with those companies, and it raises the odds that they will get hired when they graduate with their associates, because the companies already know them and know the quality of work that they're producing. So I would say that having industry partners as a part of your program is extremely important, probably one of the most important things that you can do for your program and for your students.
Do you mind if I just add, we try every semester to include the student voice, especially from a graduate, on our advisory boards. And that has made a huge difference because they sometimes voice it to me or other faculty members kind of individually, but having them play a role, usually, especially those folks who came back as working professionals, they know what they want and they have a lot to say, and they've been invaluable in our advisory board, as well as kind of the other kind of expected members that you might, from industry partners and other faculty and administrators.
Can anyone talk a little bit about where you started? Like for someone who's thinking about starting a program, how did you start finding your partners? I see, Paul, you have your hand up.
Sure, I can tell you like the brief history. So we used to have this great big old advisory board that included like 8 of the degree programs that we had, and we all met, and we had like a big room with tables, and it's quite confusing, and some people probably could be in more than one group because of their skill level or whatever. So then our chair kind of broke it out into advisory boards by degree areas. So now we have 8 different advisory boards. Since that time, I've looked at models like BUILT, for example, business and industry leadership team, that are really designed to be an advisory board on steroids, where they even actually get a chance to vote on the skills that are in our program. So that's kind of exciting. And to kind of say what Rachel said, it's really important to have student input, faculty input, subject matter experts, as well as your partners in your four-year degree programs. So everybody's really important. The voting members for our skills that go into our programs come from industry and are supported by data.
I would just say when we were building our program at the County College of Morris, I really looked at a lot of references that were out there. So there's there was a 2-year data science summit. Roxy Gold and Robert Gold and Roxy Peck were involved in that. And I would recommend really reading that document and reading that reference so that they really did a nice job of going through all the things of what you need and what you need to think about when you build your program.
Yeah, I was on that writing team, and that was a wonderful experience. That document is a great resource for starting. In terms of our advisory board, because we do have a fledgling data science program at my campus, one of the things that we did was we looked at alumni, because we thought alumni had connections to our college and would be more likely to serve on our advisory boards. We looked at alumni who are working in data industries. My college is located in Silicon Valley, like the heart of Silicon Valley. So finding people with expertise is not a problem, but trying to find them who would be willing to donate time to your college, alumni might be a good place to start your search. Okay, our second question, can you talk a little bit about the types of extracurricular activities you offer students in your program, if any? And I know some people talked about sending, I think Kelly, you talked about sending students to the Women in Data Science conference, but can anyone talk a little bit about any extracurricular opportunities that you've given your students? Rachel, you have your hand up.
So we have a great partnership with our government industry down the road, NIST. So they have STEM internships, and we recently started adding data science internships with NIST, and they've been an incredible partner for us. So we just look for any industries near us, and we try, especially if the college already has an established relationship with them, because it's hard for me, Rachel Saidi, to come in and talk to them. But if the college already has a nice relationship, then we can kind of work with them really well. So students have, I'll be honest, lots of students do go, once they are on LinkedIn and they mention that they have a certificate, they actually kind of can get scouted right there. And that's happened to some of our students. And I know Crystal mentioned that they work kind of developing students to understand the power of LinkedIn, but that's a great resource. But we just kind of, right now, that's one of our biggest challenges, is really trying to build that up so students really have multiple options, and it's not just a few that they can get into. That's our experience, at least.
I would just like to make one more plug for the ASA Data Fest that was hosted. So Rebecca and Rachel did do it. It was amazing. My students loved it. And we really want to bring more two-year community colleges on board and competing in that competition. It happens in the spring. I think it was April that it was hosted. And, it was just an amazing opportunity for the students to experience what it was like to work with a real world data set and get hands-on experience.
So
The other nice thing about, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, the other nice thing is having had my students go to the 4-year, compete against the 4-year Data Fest. I think it's a really nice place because it levels the playing field for our 2-year students. Sorry, Rebecca.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. And so one of the things that we're working on this year is to make it an official AMATYC event. It was a pilot program, so we started very small, although it was open to anyone, but we're hoping to make it an official AMATYC event. So then it'll have the advertising. I'm looking at Crystal because she's in charge of advertising for AMATYC. It'll have the advertising and all of that kind of push behind it. So look for that coming in spring, hopefully. Okay, anything else about extracurriculars? I think one of the things that is challenging, especially as we know as community college instructors, is, our students have complicated lives. Not that all students don't, but they're working. Rachel talked about her students being working professionals, so all their classwork's at night. So this fine balance of offering them opportunities, and yet at the same time understanding that even though we may offer great opportunities, sometimes they're just not able to take advantage of them just because most of them are working several jobs and going to school and balancing so many things. But I do think that opportunities are important to just offer the students that can take advantage of them. As you've been developing your programs, is there any changes you made along the way? Like you thought you were going down the path this way and then you decided to divert in a different way? Any kinds of ways that your program developed in ways that were surprising to you, or pivots you had to make that you can talk a little bit about? No smooth sailing, start to finish, linear progression?
I guess I would just say the biggest challenge for me when I was developing my program is really going through the chain to get the approval for everything. So you have to go to, in New Jersey, we have a general education committee that needs to approve classes. Then we have a curriculum committee that needs to approve classes. Then the dean and the vice president, and then it goes to the board, and then it has to go to the state. So going through the chain of getting all the approvals can be very time consuming. One course I had to wait for over a year for it to get general education approval. And it needed that approval to sit a certain way on the curriculum check sheets that we use. So those things can take a lot of time, and sometimes those things are out of your hands. So
I think that's what makes it hard to have these nationwide conversations about this, because each state has its own peculiarities, as we know. Like, for example, in California, it is impossible for a community college to develop a program or a course that doesn't articulate to a four-year institution. And so, as we try to build our data science programs from the ground up, it's very, very challenging, because if it's not going to transfer, it's super hard to do.
Yeah, so other states have mentioned the same thing. We did not have that requirement in New Jersey, but I know someone, I think he's in Chicago, who said the same thing, that there needed to be 3 schools, state schools, that their program could articulate to. And because that didn't exist, then they weren't able to build their program.
And I think I didn't catch the question all the way, but I think I've got it from the context I was answering Q&A. Sorry about that. But so the requirements are very different across the nation. Whenever we were developing the first AAS degree program, that's one of the things that we looked at when we were designing that document for the stackable credentials, and looking at the tracks for both AAS and AS. For example, Normandale College in Minnesota, they had to have that 4-year degree articulation in place before they could even submit their program. So in Ohio, we did not have to do that, and that's something that we're going to work towards. We focused on working professionals first, then now we're creating that track for the high school students. Our pipeline's starting to be filled, and now that articulation is becoming more and more important. So my next future big thing will be to create all those pathways.
So one last group question and then we'll take a look at the chat if there's specific questions we can address. What's the best piece of advice you could give someone who's about to embark on starting one of these programs, or who are in the throes of they've just started and now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to this webinar to see what people have to say? If you could give one piece of advice to your colleagues who are interested in developing or continuing to develop one of these programs, what would you say to them? Rachel, your hand immediately went up.
I just have a very quick piece of advice, is that you probably don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there are a number, okay, I got a thumbs up on that one. There are a number of data science programs out there. The hard thing, I will say, is finding them, right? So you have, this panelist and a number of other places that have them, but there are some really good data science programs out there. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you just find this. You can even ask that, folks for their syllabi and all their resources, and I'm sure everyone would love to share them, because we all want, the whole goal is to have more data science programs at two-year colleges and kind of help everyone with all the challenges of building it.
I swear you read my mind. I was literally going to say that. So I was like, ah, Rachel and I have been doing a couple of these together. But yeah, to piggyback off of what Rachel said, definitely don't recreate the wheel at this point. We have plenty of pioneers that have gone through the trenches already and built these from the ground up. So I know so many faculty who are willing to dump everything in a Google Drive, including myself. I'll share everything. It's to help, our youth and our future. There's programs out there like Data 8 from UC Berkeley and a bunch of other programs where they literally give you everything that you need, the whole curriculum, like, here you go. So the more things that you look up, Google Data Science, all of the different programs, different conferences, different webinars, different workshops, the more that you get on email lists, that's how I get all the opportunities coming into my email, data challenges that I share with my students, make them optional. My students have taken advantage of them. It's another thing to put on their portfolio. So the more things that you get yourself signed up, the more knowledgeable you're going to be and the more in the know you're going to be. So that would be my advice, is sign up for everything.
And along with that, sign up for everything. There is a community of practice with about 50 to 60 other community colleges right now that meet about once a month to talk about the different steps that you would take to build a program. There was a 2-year mentoring that went on. I think that will be ending maybe this year or next year, based off of building those associate degrees prior. So one grant led to another grant is what I was trying to say. And I think Kelly may be involved in that. The other thing that I was going to say is when you meet with other like-minded program builders, we are very willing to share and talk and meet, and I meet with a colleague on a regular basis from Columbus State Community College. And sometimes we just talk. Sometimes we share each other's syllabus. Sometimes we'll talk about nothing that has to do with data science at all. But it's helpful because it allows you to brainstorm and look at things in a different way and not trying to figure it all out yourself.
Do we want to do the last poll question or still take more questions?
I can do it now if you'd like. Let me, this is my learning process here. All right. Hopefully it's live. I made sure to let the presenter see it too. So y'all should be able to see it now. See, I'm learning, so yay. Okay. Sorry about that. Y'all did see there was a question in the chat. Y'all answered that one, right?
There's
think
one
so.
question we didn't answer.
Was
It
the
was
PD.
by Glenn about calculus and the math prerequisites.
Yes.
And
Okay,
that's an
perfect.
important one. If we still had time, I'd love for all of
We
us
have
to-
like 10 minutes. So
Yes.
yeah, you have some time.
I was going to help answer that one as well. So when we created our certificate, which was only 16 credits, that's where we wanted to have the low barriers to entry, very low math prerequisites. I think when you go and build then the associate's degree and have that 2-year degree, and that degree needs to be transferable, that's when you want to put in the calculus. So the 4-year colleges primarily want Calc 1, linear algebra, and discrete. So those are the 3 math courses I think that you need to put into your 2-year program in order for transferability. But it's the low prereqs or no prereqs I would recommend in the certificate.
And just to add, it
go
really
ahead.
depends on your 4-year school and their programs. We have a few, quite a few programs in Connecticut that don't require calculus or anything above that. It's stats based, it's programming and stats and heavily on the computer science side. There are so many different tracks in data science that not all of the data science programs require a heavy math background. So it's definitely worth taking a look at your high transfer schools, the schools that your students transfer to the most and are the ones that have the data science programs in your area, and kind of work backwards on those kinds of requirements.
Yeah, I would agree with Crystal. So and I think it is kind of this idea, I guess, if you're calling it stackable. So we have, the certificate, we have two different options, which may be a way to go. We have an Associate of Arts and we have an Associate of Science. So the Associate of Arts is mostly, stats as the math requirement. And I do believe that they recommend pre-calculus. And then the Associate of Science is, for a different pathway for different students. So that one is calculus and linear algebra. We don't require discrete, you said discrete or differential, I'm not sure, Kelly, but ours goes as, but we actually created a linear algebra course very specifically that only had a prerequisite of calculus 1. We already had a linear algebra that had a prerequisite of calculus 2, which really does not apply to data science. So that was one of our few courses that we created for the Associate of Science, so that it was more applications of linear algebra towards data science. So I think, again, as Crystal said, it really depends on working your way backwards from the four-year institution, what they would require, what they would need, and what you can help your students to give different options depending on all their different skill levels in math, statistics, communications, because maybe sometimes English is not their first language and they have to go through all sorts of English courses as well.
Great. So looking at the results of the poll, it does seem like everyone in our audience is either having a program, you're going to design one soon. So we're hoping that this webinar gave you some resources. I know that all the presenters in their slides have their contact information. You'll be able to access this webinar recording. This community is like many math and statistics communities, very sharing. Like Paul mentioned, communities of practice, people sharing. Crystal talked about the Data 8 people sharing their entire syllabus. So there's a lot of resources that'll help you get started. I think what happens is in this field is that the number of resources is kind of overwhelming. There's so many people who want to help you get started, as opposed to other things where you can't find any help at all. So that's not the issue with starting a data science program. So I think I can speak on behalf of all the panelists in saying that anyone here would be happy to exchange emails with you. Maybe we'll see you in Toronto. Well, I'm sure there will be a few sessions to follow up on this at the AMATYC conference, or maybe even future webinars to explore this topic a little more deeply. This one was designed for people who are just kind of like investigating the process, but if there's interest, maybe we can do one for people who already have programs up and running to talk about some of the issues of sustaining. I know there was a question in the chat that we didn't get to about recruiting students. So, maybe a webinar with like a more advanced level webinar in data science we can plan in the future. But we want to thank you very much for your attendance. And if we can be of any help as you want to get your program started, I'm sure that anyone on the panel would be happy to help you in any way they could. Mary, do you have AMATYC wrap up things?
Just wanted to thank everyone for being here, attendees and presenters. Thank you again. And as mentioned, this webinar recording will be posted to our archive page. And I believe some of the presenters have already started typing in their emails into the chat as well. So thank you again to everybody and have a great rest of your day.